a knock at the door, and I started unlocking the door, and the door flew open in my face.
FBI agents have seen it all, but this time, they faced a case that turned their lives upside down. Used to handling the most violent and serious crimes, they never expected one of their own to be involved.
He was telling me, look into my eyes, I'm gonna do something.
These agents had a tough road. They lost a colleague and spent nearly 3 years seeking justice for her. But as the saying goes in this bureau, we are family, which means that attacking an FBI agent is like attacking the entire FBI, and they will find you. It becomes personal. It was a hot Friday morning in Wilmington, North Carolina, and the day started quite ordinarily. It was the end of the work week, and everyone was preparing for the weekend, including the agents at the local FBI field office. It was 8:20 a.m., and the office manager's assistant, 28-year-old Melissa Mooney, was noticeably absent from her desk, already 20 minutes late. You might think that this is not a big deal, and it happens to everyone, but FBI agent Craig Ackley and their boss, Larry Bonney, were immediately concerned. It was completely out of character for Melissa. By 8:30 a.m., with no sign of her and no word, Special Agent Larry Bonney, her mentor, was growing increasingly worried. He knew she had recently bought a new house and thought her absence might be related to the move. However, he also knew that if she were just running late, she would have called, which she hadn't. Since she wasn't answering her phone, Larry Bonney decided to send agents to her home at 9 a.m. During the 4 years Melissa worked at the FBI office, she became more than just a colleague. Everyone knew she had a daughter, Sammy. As a single mother, Melissa faced the typical challenges after her divorce, and her co-workers, including her boss, were always supportive. Little Sammy often stayed at her mother's boss, Larry Bonney's, house when Melissa had errands to run and no one else could look after her. By 9:30 a.m., FBI agents arrived at Melissa's new house. Her burgundy Mazda was parked outside. They tried calling her home phone but got no response. They then called her mobile, which they could hear ringing inside the house. Could she have left without her phone? They called out for Melissa, knocked on the doors and windows, but there was no answer. They noticed a footprint on the door, suggesting it had been kicked in and then closed again. They reported the situation to Bonney, who said, "I think something bad has happened to Melissa. Treat this house as a crime scene. Get inside and find out what's going on." When the agent entered the house, he saw boxes of Melissa and her daughter's belongings and moved cautiously. The kitchen phone cord had been ripped from the wall, a photo frame was broken, and glass shards were scattered on the floor. The house was eerily silent, with no one responding to their calls. When the agent reached the bedroom, he saw signs of a violent struggle, and, lying nearby on the floor, was Melissa's lifeless body. Melissa was found naked in the bedroom. There were no stabs or gunshot wounds, but it appeared she had been strangled. The shocked agents suddenly realized that Melissa's 4-year-old daughter, Sammy, was missing. The fear for the little girl's safety was the only thing that made them pull themselves together and act. They searched the house but couldn't find her. Bonney ordered the agents to secure the crime scene until he arrived with reinforcements. On the way, Larry Bonney learned that Sammy was safe with her father. Melissa had been preparing a little surprise, decorating Sammy's new room while her daughter spent time with her dad. Larry Bonney, with over 25 years of experience in the Bureau, called upon all 6 of his field agents to assist in the investigation. While they had collectively worked on numerous similar cases, this one struck a personal chord. The forensic team also arrived at the scene promptly to gather physical evidence. It was evident that Melissa had endured a violent assault. There were signs of strangulation on her neck, bruises, and prominent hematomas all over her body. The perpetrator appeared to be strong and filled with rage. Roger Mooney, Melissa's ex-husband and Sammy's father, immediately came under suspicion. At 29 years old, Roger was an American and a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps. He and Melissa had been married for 5 years before going through a bitter and painful divorce. Bonney was aware of the couple's turbulent relationship. Melissa feared Roger, describing him as a big, strong man with a rather volatile temperament. Larry Bonney dispatched FBI agents to notify Mooney of his ex-wife's death and to interrogate him. Roger was shocked and adamantly denied any involvement, insisting that he had never been to her new house, as she had only just moved in. Naturally, since they shared a child, Roger would have needed to visit occasionally in the future, but that hadn't happened yet. Craig Ackley, an FBI agent who also worked closely with Melissa, was aware that a few weeks before her death, there had been a hearing regarding an increase in child support, which deeply upset Roger. Ackley had many inquiries, but Roger Mooney, realizing he was the main suspect, remained silent and declined to respond. Consequently, the agents had no option but to verify his alibi. Roger claimed he was with his daughter Sammy, 70 miles away from the crime scene at Camp Lejeune. Meanwhile, other FBI colleagues were questioning people living near Melissa's house. Focusing solely on one suspect can be risky, even if everyone believes he's guilty. They spread out through the victim's neighborhood, hoping to find potential witnesses. The first people they approached on this hot day were a young couple washing their SUV. Despite the numerous police cars and tape marking off the nearby crime scene, they appeared unconcerned. During the conversation, they proved to be very observant and mentioned that they hadn't seen or heard anything suspicious. Unfortunately, they hadn't had a chance to meet their new neighbor. Agents, officers, and detectives went door to door, but the stories were the same. No one saw anything. Bonney even dispatched agents to Melissa's previous apartment, located in a large complex with over 1,000 units, which meant there were thousands of potential witnesses among whom the suspect could be hiding. In such cases, searches begin with sorting names using a database. Sometimes, criminals who commit such acts already have a criminal history. The agents made an incredible discovery when they found a suspicious man living in Melissa's old apartment building. He was a former pastor accused of assaulting women involved in prostitution and soliciting favors from parishioners. The Bureau considered the possibility that this disgraced young clergyman had been stalking Melissa, possibly communicating with her and tracking her to her new home. However, further investigation found no evidence of any interaction between him and Melissa or that he had been near her house on the day of her death. Despite this, Bonney couldn't let go of the suspicion Melissa's ex-husband and the possibility of his involvement. He decided to thoroughly investigate Roger Mooney's alibi. According to the coroner, Melissa passed away early in the morning on August 6th between 1 and 3 a.m. Mooney claimed he was at home sleeping with his daughter Sammy at that time. However, agents began to investigate if it was possible for him to have traveled 112 kilometers from his home near Camp Lejeune to Melissa's house, committed the act, and returned before his daughter woke up. They checked all possible routes to determine the duration of this journey, stopping at stores, gas stations, ATMs, and obtaining surveillance footage wherever possible. If Roger had indeed left home in that direction, he would have been caught on camera somewhere along the way. Their investigation proved that there was enough time for him to commit the crime, but the police did not find any evidence confirming that Mr. Mooney had left his house during the night. Numerous details emerged during the investigation that pointed to Roger. He had a volatile character and could engage in prolonged and heated arguments if provoked. At the shooting range with other Marines, Mooney even bragged about using a photo of Melissa as a target to improve his shooting results. While this behavior raised significant suspicions, there was no concrete evidence against him. However, soon, evidence emerged. The North Carolina State Forensic Laboratory conducted a thorough analysis of the evidence collected at the crime scene. The body was found on the floor, the mattress was uncovered and damp, and a hair was discovered on the carpet, with another found on the mattress. The experts, suspecting that Melissa had been raped after the attack, examined the mattress to find blood, semen, or other biological fluids for DNA profiling of the assailant. They discovered a stain on the mattress resembling traces of male semen and took a sample. The DNA profile matched that of Melissa's ex-husband, Roger Mooney. The hair found on the carpet where Melissa was discovered also matched his DNA. Mr. Mooney was furious and denied any involvement. He even agreed to take a polygraph test to prove his innocence but couldn't control his emotions. In such a state, the results could not be objective. Nevertheless, the investigation aimed to be fair despite the emotional circumstances. They still had a key element in Mooney's defense: the footprint on Melissa's door. Mooney's shoes didn't match, and neither did any other footwear. This led to an explanation for his DNA being on the mattress. It was their former marital bed. The assumption that the sample was fresh was superficial, based solely on the presence of wet stains on the fabric. Experts informed the investigation that this did not necessarily indicate recent presence and intimacy between the man and his ex-wife. Melissa could have simply thrown a wet towel on the mattress after a shower or placed something wet in the area where semen traces were found. There was also an explanation for Roger's hair in Melissa's bedroom. He claimed he hadn't been there, but their daughter Sammy often visited him, including in her mother's bedroom. She regularly traveled between her parents' homes and could have literally transferred the hair onto herself. This was, of course, a theory of the investigation and also a reason why it was a weak piece of evidence. Finally, Roger's volatile character became a justification in the eyes of the agents. This couple had endured a very difficult family life, full of scandals and misunderstandings. They had gone through a terrible divorce, custody battles, and child support hearings. It was only then that he decided to settle scores with her, at a time when his ex-wife was preparing a room for their daughter and wanted to surprise her. It sounded odd. Melissa's coworkers had seen how temperamental her husband could be and wondered if he would have done so long before their divorce if he were capable of such actions. As the agents delved deeper into the case, trying to find evidence against Roger Mooney while maintaining belief in his innocence, they considered the possibility of a crime motivated by passion, jealousy, or perhaps rejection. As a result, they shifted their focus to other individuals close to Melissa, including the man she was seeing after her divorce from Mooney. Luis Vargas, a 28-year-old landscape designer, had been in a relationship with Melissa for over 4 months. He had helped her move and had even met some of her coworkers. Larry Bonney and other colleagues of Melissa could confirm his presence in her life, and he had a positive relationship with Sammy. However, shortly before Melissa's body was discovered, Luis and Melissa had broken up, making him her ex-boyfriend. This recent breakup could have been a motive for seeking revenge. The investigators searched Vargas's residence, examined his computer, and collected DNA and hair samples, but there was no match. They also scrutinized his phone records and conversations but found no communication with Melissa or any attempts to contact each other. Shocked, Vargas proved his alibi. That night, he was with a woman he had met online, at her apartment complex, which had security alarms and several surveillance cameras. The FBI was able to confirm his whereabouts during that time, leading to another dead end. The agents continued to delve into their colleague's personal life, which led them to another man. A married contractor who had worked on the construction of Melissa's house. Their interaction was a one-time event, and his innocence was confirmed through his alibi. However, his affair did not go unnoticed by his wife, leading to a search of their home, DNA collection, and interviews with his wife. He even underwent a polygraph test to expedite the process. He was shocked by the harsh treatment, although he cooperated. As the list of suspects ran out, the investigation even reached Melissa's FBI colleagues, including polygraph tests. Everyone, from the security guard at the entrance to Larry Bonney, the office chief, was under scrutiny. Suddenly, another law enforcement colleague came under scrutiny. On that evening, Melissa had called a certain ATF agent from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, a federal law enforcement agency closely allied with the FBI. During the search of her belongings, investigators discovered an intriguing clue, a letter from the agent addressed to Melissa with the text, "I need the key to your new home." It turned out that Melissa had met him a year or two ago. They had worked together during the search for a fugitive who was on the FBI's 10 most wanted list, a person responsible for 152 victims. Despite being a very detestable person, the case was incredibly captivating. The two had been in communication for quite some time, but their relationship evolved into a long-distance romance, which was still ongoing at the time of the girl's death, despite her being in a relationship with Luis Vargas. The FBI discovered that the man had purchased a car for Melissa at an auction and had it delivered to her home in Wilmington, the same burgundy Mazda. He also gave her around $20,000 to help her pay for this house. This man is married. Was Melissa asking for more from him? Did he consider leaving his family for her? Could there have been blackmail involved? There were more questions than answers. Fortunately, the investigators' worst fears were not confirmed. The ATF agent had a solid alibi. He was at a conference in Colorado that night, and surveillance footage from nearby hotels and restaurants supported his claim. Two years had elapsed, yet the investigation into Melissa Mooney's tragic death had made no progress in catching the perpetrator. No one had forgotten Melissa, and no one had forgiven. her memory still fresh in everyone's minds. In August 2001, authorities decided to restart the investigation from scratch. The FBI spared no resources to ensure that the culprit faced justice. More than 100 people were involved, and agents approached the case as if the events had happened just yesterday. They revisited crucial details of the case, re-examined the surroundings, and re-interviewed individuals. Although they didn't uncover any new leads, they observed strange behavior from one of Melissa's neighbors. Tyrone Delgado, a married father of two, was washing his car with his wife, Anna, the day after Melissa's death. Interestingly, they were the first individuals interviewed by the FBI 2 years earlier. Back then, they had claimed they hadn't seen anything, stating they had been at home asleep that night. Anna Delgado mentioned they would have heard if Tyrone had woken up, as she is a light sleeper. However, something had changed in those 2 years. For reasons unknown, Tyrone fell silent. Now, he adamantly refused to discuss the matter. At times, he seemed irritated, while at other times, he displayed indifference. The detectives lacked enough evidence for a search warrant, but they started collecting information about Tyrone. They discovered that Delgado had served in the U.S. Marine Corps for 3 years, traveling across the country before settling in Wilmington with his wife and children. A quick check of his criminal record showed no convictions, although he had brushes with the law. When Delgado learned that they were gathering information about him, he became irritated and called Agent Ackley himself. Craig ignored his outbursts, calmly stating that if Tyrone didn't cooperate, they wouldn't rule him out as a suspect. Delgado exploded, shouting over the phone that the FBI had 30 minutes to search his house. Craig Ackley and the sheriff's detectives arrived within minutes. With little time, they immediately searched for Delgado's shoes, hoping to match them with the dirty shoe print found on the door. Tyrone demanded to know what they were searching for. They said they would tell him if they found it, but he noticed their focus on his shoe soles. He then shouted and kicked the officers out of his house. Without his consent or a warrant, the FBI couldn't continue the search, but they understood everything and started investigating his background. Despite having no criminal convictions, Delgado had a curious pattern. He had been arrested multiple times, but each time the charges against him were dropped. While this could happen, it was unusual to happen so frequently with a large number of arrests. Larry Bonney sent investigators to his hometown, Leesville, Louisiana. There, investigators uncovered a disturbing story involving a young woman named Lorraine. 7 years prior, Delgado was arrested for an aggravated essay against this 23-year-old mother of two. Lorraine provided her testimony to the Leesville police, which was recorded.
I heard a knock at the door, and I started unlocking the door, and the door flew open in my face, and Tyrone grabbed me by my shirt. I screamed and told him to stop, to get off, that I was pregnant, and then he started choking me.
Despite her injuries, Lorraine survived and spent several days in the hospital. Delgado inflicted severe bruises on her legs, face, neck, and nose, and even attempted to strangle her.
It was like everything just started going dark. It was like I couldn't focus on him anymore.
Detectives tracked down Lorraine and convinced her to share the truth. While she was reluctant to revisit the trauma, she agreed to meet with investigators and assist. She revealed that she dropped the charges after Delgado's mother paid her $2,000. As an unemployed single mother, she felt unable to turn down the money, and she also feared retaliation from his family. However, Lorraine's case was just the tip of the iceberg. The FBI discovered similar assault cases across the country, but concrete evidence was still lacking. Agents recalled a potentially crucial piece of evidence. A hair found on the carpet belonged to Roger Mooney, while the one on the mattress was unidentifiable. The second hair had been stored in the forensic laboratory for 2 years. Experts compared the DNA from this pubic hair, which turned out to be Delgado's, and found a somewhat disappointing result. The hair fragment did not contain nuclear DNA, but mitochondrial DNA. While nuclear DNA can be conclusively linked to an individual or identical twins, mitochondrial DNA is less specific. Simply put, the analysis indicated a 3 in 1,000 chance that the hair belonged to Delgado. In February of 2002, a clerk at a 24-hour convenience store reported an assault by Tyrone Delgado. He shoved her against a cabinet in the back of the store, grabbed her by the throat, and threatened, "I can do anything I want to you, and there's nothing you can do about it. The last woman who crossed my path is gone, and I'll do the same to you." Just then, someone entered the store, causing Tyrone to flee. He was arrested immediately, but due to lack of sufficient evidence, he was only convicted of minor assault and sentenced to 4 months in jail. Upon his release, Delgado made a critical mistake. He began stalking and terrorizing the one person who had the power to put him behind bars, his wife and the mother of his daughters. In November 2003, Ana Delgado contacted the FBI after her husband brutally attacked her. He did the same things he had done to his other victims, strangling, beating, and repeatedly assaulting her while threatening to stab her in the stomach with a sword. Only her claim that she was carrying his child stopped Tyrone, giving Ana the precious time she needed to escape from the house. All these years, Ana had lived in constant fear of Tyrone, but now she was ready to retract her previous statements in the Melissa Mooney case. "I know he's the one who killed that girl. He wasn't home that night. He told me to lie to the FBI and say he was here all night," she confessed. She had also seen his obsession with the Melissa Mooney case. Tyrone had cut out all the newspaper articles about it, and she even saw him burning something in the backyard, likely the shoes he used to kick in Melissa's door. With this new testimony, the prosecutor could now charge Tyrone Delgado in Melissa Mooney's murder. During the investigation, they were able to reconstruct what happened that night. Tyrone had seen Melissa moving into her new home alone and noticed when his new neighbor took her 4-year-old daughter, Sammy, somewhere. Drunk, he showed up at Melissa's door, wanting to come in. She refused, saying she wasn't interested, and closed the door, but mistakenly didn't lock it. Enraged, Tyrone kicked the door open and chased after her. He caught up with her in the bedroom, where a struggle began. The seemingly upstanding neighbor, a Navy veteran and family man, overpowered Melissa in the fight, then strangled and assaulted her. Delgado was a pathological narcissist and psychopath who took pleasure in instilling fear in others. In July 2008, a jury convicted Tyrone Delgado for the murder of Melissa Mooney. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Melissa's family and the FBI could finally grieve the loss of their colleague. Larry Bonney and the other senior staff members felt as if they had lost a daughter because, to them, they were all family.